Christine Bruckner is the president of AIA Hong Kong. We're going to Hong Kong later this week after the conference here in Shanghai, and we're going to nearby Shenzhen in China. So it's going to be an exciting trip. And tell me about Hong Kong, because you went there for a year and then you stayed. What made you stay there?
Well, as I was mentioning before, it's a very livable city and it's very welcoming. And what people don't realize is that Hong Kong is incredibly efficient and easy to live in terms of the central district, which has all sky rises, very elevated walkways which combine the retail and transportation, but it also has a phenomenal transportation system. And everything is public transportation, gets you everywhere. And so you can really do anything very quickly. You can do multiple things in a day. You can develop your own businesses there. It's very easy to get started and get people together. And on the other side, it's a wonderful place to raise a family. There's so much greenery, parks, programs, and it's a very well-rounded place to live. And we stay for 1 more year, but it's been 15.
Hong Kong has changed so much in just the last 10, 20 years with all of these new buildings going up and all of the connections with railways and whatnot. What's that been like?
Hong Kong is always under construction somewhere. But I think at the core, it's been quite similar in the 15 years that I've been there. We landed just before the handover. And we've just seen the development. The waterfront has historically been moving forward, and I think there's finally a stop on that. And the areas that are developed are always coming forward with new waterfronts, with new areas, and they're very useful to everybody. But the core of the city, its energy, its parks, and its diversity, I think is maintained this stuff very well.
This is the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, and we've touched on urban habitat, but tall buildings, as spectacular as the Hong Kong skyline has always been. We've got 2 new super talls, actually 3, counting the center. How have 2 IFC and the International Commerce Center changed the landscape in town?
Well, with concerted design, they work together to form a gateway into the city. And they have a dialogue across the water. And IFC first was there, and it was very, very tall, seemingly much taller than everything else around it. And when ICC came in, the concept had been to create that framework, so that when you came in, you were entering into the city of Hong Kong and into that harbor. So they had a strong faith there, and it worked very well in terms of the evening skyline and the dialogue between. And now with the development now of the Kowloon area in the West District and public cultural centers that will be going on, I think that we're all hoping that there'll be much more of an active waterfront with things going back and forth across the harbor and the tall buildings that are going to be continuing to develop across the harbor as well.
That was actually going to be my next question, was about Kowloon, because the airport used to be right there.
Absolutely.
And it has since moved out, and how and the ICC has kind of changed Kowloon. Has been a new center of activity there. But how else has Kowloon been changing?
Well, it's changing a lot. It's been under design and discussion with the public and with government for years. And the development now of all of these new galleries, opera, and big parks is very exciting. That's going to try to create a hub. But also that whole area where the airport is, I did used to land at that airport. It was quite exciting, but that's an amazing piece of land, very central. And how dense that's going to be developed, how that is going to become another central relation to central is one of the key points of interest to see how it can further develop across the harbor.
We're going on the post-conference tour to Hong Kong, which I can't wait, and we're also going to Shenzhen. So when you take people through Hong Kong, when visitors come to Chicago, I always have my spots that I bring them, and just give us a rundown of what we're going to see in Hong Kong and Shenzhen.
We are going to start with the IFC, and we're going to do a walking tour throughout Hong Kong with the buildings of the HSBC and the Bank of China. But we're also going to talk about the whole way that the older districts have developed up to Hollywood Road and some of the places that are out there. Then we're going to go to Taipei and visit that whole area which has been a redevelopment process with mixed use. And we will then go to the New Hennessy Tyson Place, and we will go to ICC across the harbor, and of course we'll take in the view of the entire harbor and light show from the top, and then we'll take you over to Shenzhen on Sunday to visit the KK100, and also have some tours of the urban scale with Urbanus. And then we'll be coming back and have lectures and talks at the traditional Alenime and Asia Society. So
That's spectacular, and a lot of, the more we, one of the great things about tall buildings is when you hear about them, you're getting a geography lesson every time, and, I, like many other people, had heard about Hong Kong and never really knew about Shenzhen. What kind of a city is that?
Shenzhen is developing very, very, very quickly. There's a lot happening there, and as you go through, you'll see the different centers and the different areas and how it's developed. It's growing quickly.
I would like to know what your favorite place in a tall building is, because when you get inside a tall building like the Shanghai World Financial Center, for example, there's a very otherworldly, bizarre environment up there on that observation deck like there is nowhere else on the planet. Do any other tall building locations come to mind when you think about spectacular places within buildings?
I think it is always that pinnacle where you can be at the top and looking around and finding a place or a time when you can reflect on everything at multiple levels. And you can see the city, you can reflect as an urban designer, you can reflect as a human being, you can see your connection between heaven and earth. You can really start to understand it and think about some of those bigger issues. So getting to the very, very top, it's just being at the tip of a mast on a spinner. It's the same experience.
Christine Bruckner with AIA Hong Kong, looking forward to that trip, and thanks very much for coming to see us in Shanghai.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.